These concerns about covert propaganda were also the basis for the GAO's standard for determining when government-funded video news releases are illegal. And I quote, "The failure of an agency to identify itself as the source of a prepackaged news story misleads the viewing public by encouraging the viewing audience to believe that the broadcasting news organization developed the information. The prepackaged news stories are purposely designed to be indistinguishable from news segments broadcast to the public. When the television viewing public does not know that the stories they watched on television news programs about the government were in fact prepared by the government, the stories are, in a sense, no longer purely factual. The essential fact of attribution is missing." End of quote. The White House's own Office of Legal Counsel stated in a memorandum written in 2005 following the controversy over the Armstrong-Williams scandal, I quote, "Over the years, GAO has interpreted publicity or propaganda restrictions to preclude the use of appropriated funds for, among other things, so-called covert propaganda. Consistent with that view, the Office of Legal Counsel determined in 1988 that a statutory prohibition on using appropriated funds for publicity or propaganda precluded undisclosed agency funding of advocacy by third-party groups. We stated that covert attempts to mold opinion through the undisclosed use of third parties would run afoul of restrictions on using appropriated funds for propaganda. Asked about the Pentagon's propaganda program at White House press briefing in April of 2008, White House Press Secretary Dana Perino defended it, not by arguing that it was legal, but by suggesting that it should be. He said, quote, "Look, I didn't know. Look, I think you guys should take a step back and look at this. Look, DOD has made a decision. They've decided to stop this program. But I would say that one of the things that we try to do in the administration is to get information out to a variety of people so that everyone else can call them and ask their opinion about something. And I don't think that that should be against the law. And I think it's absolutely appropriate to provide information to people who are seeking it and are going to be providing their opinions on it. It doesn't necessarily mean all of those military analysts ever agreed with the administration. I think you can go back and look and think that a lot of their analysis was pretty tough on the administration. That doesn't mean we shouldn't talk to people," unquote. In all these actions and decisions, President George W. Bush has acted in a manner contrary to his trust as President and Commander-in-Chief, and subversive of constitutional government, to the prejudice and the cause of law and justice, and to the manifest injury of the people of the United States. Wherefore, President George W. Bush, by such conduct, is guilty of an impeachable offense warranting removal from office. Article 2. Systematically and with criminal intent, conflating the attacks of September 11, 2001 with misrepresentation of Iraq as an imminent security threat as part of a fraudulent justification for a war of aggression. In his conduct while President of the United States, George W. Bush, in violation of his constitutional oath to faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and to the best of his ability preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, and in violation of his constitutional duty under Article 2, Section 3 of the Constitution to take care that the laws be faithfully executed, has both personally and acting through his agents and subordinates, together with the Vice President, executed a calculated and wide-ranging strategy to deceive the citizens of the United States and the Congress of the United States into believing that there was and is a connection between Iraq and Saddam Hussein on one hand and the attacks of September 11, 2001 and Al-Qaeda on the other hand, so as to falsely justify the use of the United States Armed Forces against the nation of Iraq in a manner that is damaging to the national security interest of the United States as well as to fraudulently obtain and maintain congressional authorization and funding for the use of such military force against Iraq, thereby interfering with and obstructing Congress's lawful functions of overseeing foreign affairs and declaring war. The means used to implement this deception were and continue to be, first, allowing, authorizing, and sanctioning the manipulation of intelligence analysis by those under his direction and control, including the Vice President and the Vice President's agents, and second, personally making or causing, authorizing, and allowing to be made through highly placed subordinates, including the President's Chief of Staff, the White House Press Secretary, and other White House spokespersons, the Secretaries of State and Defense, the National Security Advisor, and their deputies and spokespersons, false and fraudulent representations to the citizens of the United States and Congress regarding an alleged connection between Saddam Hussein and Iraq on one hand, and the September 11th attacks and al-Qaeda on the other hand, that were half-true, literally true but misleading, and or were made without a reasonable basis and with reckless indifference to their truth, as well as omitting to state facts necessary to present an accurate picture of the truth as follows. A. On or about September 12, 2001, former terrorism advisor Richard Clark personally informed the President that neither Saddam Hussein nor Iraq was responsible for the September 11th attacks. On September 18th, Clark submitted to the President's National Security Advisor, Condoleezza Rice, a memo that he had written in response to George W. Bush's specific request that stated, 1, the case for linking Hussein to the September 11th attacks was weak, and 2, only anecdotal evidence linked Hussein to al-Qaeda. 3, Osama bin Laden resented the secularism of Saddam Hussein. And 4, there was no confirmed reporting of Saddam Hussein cooperating with bin Laden on unconventional weapons. B, 10 days after the September 11th attacks, the President received a President's Daily Briefing, which indicated that the U.S. intelligence community had no evidence linking Saddam Hussein to the September 11th attacks, and that there was, quote, scant evidence available that Iraq had any significant collaborative ties with al-Qaeda, unquote. C, in Defense Intelligence Terrorism Summary number 044-02, issued in February 2002, the United States Defense Intelligence Agency cast significant doubt on the possibility of a Saddam Hussein al-Qaeda conspiracy. Quote, Saddam's regime is intensely secular and is wary of Islamic revolutionary movements. Moreover, Baghdad is unlikely to provide assurance to a group it cannot control, unquote. D, the October 2002 National Intelligence Estimate gave a, quote, low confidence, unquote, rating to the notion of whether, quote, in desperation Saddam would share chemical or biological weapons with al-Qaeda, unquote. The CIA never informed the President that there was an operational relationship between al-Qaeda and Saddam Hussein. On the contrary, its most aggressive analysis contained in Iraq and al-Qaeda Interpreting a Murky Relationship, dated June 21, 2002, was that Iraq had had, quote, sporadic, wary contacts with al-Qaeda since the mid-1990s, rather than a relationship with al-Qaeda that's developed over time, unquote. E,